Hey everyone. So the Dollar Tree stacker comes up quite often whenever folks are commenting on the videos in this channel. So I thought maybe I should really check them out. So I've set them up already. We won't go over the setup instructions in this video. I'll put a link for that. However, today, after some time using the Dollar Tree stacking planter, I thought I'd post my review of it. So we're gonna go over the design and the build, the planting capacity, the watering, the drainage, nutrients, and who might the Dollar Tree stacker be for. So let's start with the first topic. Let's talk about the design and the build. So it is a fairly thin material. Here, I've got a spare one. It comes in 4 colors. So I got the terracotta, but it also comes in blue, green, and I think a taupe color. As you can see, that is how thin it is everywhere. It's very easy to squeeze, so very thin material. And it comes with drainage holes underneath each of the planters. So nothing in the middle on its own. You can of course create your own, but it is so thin that even as I try to pop these out myself, sometimes I actually crack the material. So that's how thin and brittle it is. I have seen some reviews online that say that it used to be better. So it's possible that these used to be quite a bit thicker, but at least as of right now, they are as thin and brittle as I am mentioning. They almost feel like one of these, it almost feels just a smidge thicker than one of these little pots that you might get, when you're at Home Depot or another big box store and getting a plant. So that's kind of the idea of it. So each one of these does hold 3. They don't come in a set. So traditionally in other sets like the Mr. Stacky or the green stock or something like that, they'll say 5 tier, 3 tier, whatever it is. These don't. They come individually like this for $1.25. As you can see here, I have it as a 5 tier and each one with 3 pockets. So I have 15 here, but it could have kept going as high as you want. I probably would say after 5 or 6 though, it does feel a bit more unstable. So I would recommend either drilling a hole down the middle and putting a beam to support it, or put it in a place with less wind. The last thing I will mention is that there's nothing on the label or the description online that says anything about food safety or food safe plastic or anything like that. So unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable growing fruits and vegetables out of this. It does say on the description, flowers or herbs. So maybe that's the most you should recommend using. But I do have strawberries, of course, in my tower right now. But that's just more for testing purposes. All right, so next, planting capacity. So each one of these tiers actually holds about 5 quarts of soil. And each one of these pockets, of course, or each one of the tiers holds 3 pockets. So that's kind of what you're looking at. So it's going to be a similar issue that I had discussed about with the Mr. Stacky. And pretty much it's that these are small. So anything that might use up or require more nutrients, you're going to have to be fertilizing and feeding quite often. So that's something to be aware of. Now, if you're just mostly going to use this for herbs and flowers, which is what I would probably recommend, or for me, probably just mostly just flowers, hopefully it requires a little bit less nutrients, but just to kind of be aware, not a lot of soil, so that means that you're going to have to fertilize quite often. Now, moving on to watering. So I showed here that all of the drainage holes are underneath all of the plants. So each one of these plants will have the drainage holes here. Nothing will be in the middle unless you do it yourself. And I find that to be actually a little bit annoying. And I'll tell you why. Because all the drainage holes are underneath each plant, that means if I water the top, only these 2 tiers underneath would get water because it's only draining from the pockets. Technically, if I water only this tier, this second tier right below it won't get it because the pockets aren't underneath each other. And there's no holes in the center, so you have to minimum water the top 2 layers to make sure that the rest of the tower gets watered. Not only do you have to water the top 2 layers, you have to water all pockets on the top 2 layers. So that's another thing that I find a little bit annoying. So one thing that you could do, of course, is drain a hole or drill another hole down the middle, or maybe one of these little areas. Be careful not to break it. And that should help out a little bit with your watering process. For me, using strawberries, herbs, bell peppers as an example, I had to water about every 2 days. So just to give you an idea of how often you have to water. Of course, if it's something that is going to be using a bit more water than others, you may need to up it yourself. I did see suggestions about not popping these, which means that you would have to water every layer and every pocket, and it does hold the water in a bit more. I find that if I did leave the whole, if I did leave these covers in and not pop them out, I could probably go to 2.5 to 3 days. So it definitely does make a difference, and it's something to consider if that makes sense for you. If you want to try and hold out for an extra day or something like that, that could be useful. But then reminder, that means you have to water every single pocket because now there's 0 drainage to any of the other ones. Speaking of drainage, if you do that, you would also have to worry about putting too much water in each tier, and that can also be its own issue there. So just something to think about. All right, so when do I think someone should consider the Dollar Tree stacker? This is probably great for something short term. I've had it for a few months now. It's fine right now, but it feels so thin and brittle that I won't be surprised that if this breaks in a year or sooner. So I'll of course do an update when these give out for me, but for now they don't feel very premium, and to be fair, they're $1.25 per tier. So this 5 tier right here was only $6.25 and then plus tax. So you're getting what you're paying for. I think these are fantastic for experiments. So if you have little kids and you just want to do some planting experiments, things like that, nothing edible, of course, they're fantastic. If you're okay going in knowing that this is a seasonal thing, seasonal use, that's also fantastic there as well. If you really want bare bones cheapest in getting your toes wet or your feet wet in vertical gardening, this is also great use for there. And then of course, if you just need something and you're aware that, hey, these could break in a year or 2, then yeah. But definitely not ideal for long term. Definitely not ideal for things that you plan on eating, like your fruits and vegetables. But this is what I thought about the Dollar Tree stacker. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a good one.